to the planning of the wedding. However, had he been detail-oriented, it would not have mattered. Life with Mercer was wonderful in so many ways, not the least of which was the absence of responsibility for making decisions. The pressure was off. A guitarist strummed love songs as the guests sipped champagne. She was a creative writing student of Mercer's at Ole Miss and had volunteered for the wedding. A server in a straw hat topped off their glasses. He, too, was studying under Mercer, though she had yet to break the news that his fiction was too weird. If she were a blunt person, she would point out that he was likely to earn more money tending bar at small weddings than trying to write novels, but she had yet to gain tenure or the ability to discourage students with little promise. Mercer taught because she needed a salary. She had published a collection of short stories and 2 novels. She was searching for a third. Her last one, Tessa, had been a bestseller, and its success had prompted Viking Press to give her a 2-book contract. Her editor at Viking was still waiting for the next story idea. So was Mercer. She had some money in the bank, but not enough to retire, not enough to buy the freedom to write full-time with no worries. A few of her guests had that freedom. Myra and Lee, the grand dames of the island's literary mafia, had been together for decades and were living off royalties. Back in their glory days, they had cranked out 100 steamy romance novels under a dozen pseudonyms. Bob Cobb was an ex-felon who served time in a federal pen for bank fraud. He wrote hard-boiled crime stories with a penchant for prison violence. When drinking, which was practically all the time, he claimed he had not pursued honest labor in 20 years. He was a writer. Perhaps the wealthiest of the group was Amy Slater, a young mother of 3 who'd hit pay dirt with a vampire series. Amy and her husband, Dan, had taken a chunk of their money and built a splendid house on the beach about a half-mile from Mercer's cottage. When they heard about the wedding, they insisted on hosting it along with the reception. Like every bride, Mercer envisioned a lovely walk down the aisle with her father. He, though, got cut from the ceremony, as did the aisle. Mr. Mann was a complicated soul who had never spent time with his wife or daughters. When he complained that the wedding might conflict with his busy schedule, Mercer said, never mind, they would have more fun without him. Her sister Connie was there and could always be counted on for family drama. Her 2 rotten teenage girls were already sitting in the back row and staring at their phones. Her husband was gulping champagne. On the more pleasant side, her literary agent, Etta Shuttleworth, was there with her husband, as was her Viking editor, who no doubt wanted to grab a moment and inquire about the next novel, now a year overdue. Mercer was determined not to talk business. It was her wedding, and if the editor got the least bit pushy, then Etta was expected to step in. 3 sorority sisters from Sewanee were there, 2 with husbands. The third was fresh off an acrimonious divorce that Mercer had heard far too much about. All 3 had the hots for Thomas, and Mercer was keeping an eye on them. The fact that he was 5 years younger than his bride made him even sexier. 2 colleagues from the Ole Miss faculty had survived the final cut of the invitation list and were spending a week on the island. Mercer got on with them well enough, but was cautious. She had only invited them to be polite. She was on her 3rd campus in the past 6 years and had learned a lot about faculty politics. She was the only professor in the history of the Ole Miss English department to crack the bestseller lists with a novel, and at times she could feel the jealousy. An old pal from Chapel Hill had been invited, but declined. 2 friends from high school and 1 from kindergarten were there. Thomas had a more stable family. His parents and siblings and their young children filled an entire